All right, welcome back. Picking up where we left off, it's round 2 of our deep dive into this DevMac Reboot.
Round 2, yeah.
Last time, we kind of tackled those big picture questions, how this massive development contract could be structured.
Right.
Like, how do you group the types of work? How do you even think about organizing the talent that's going to do this work?
Yeah.
And how does pricing even begin to work on a contract like this?
Right. It was like getting a sneak peek at the blueprint for like a whole new construction project.
Exactly.
And today, well, we're putting on our hard hats. We're getting a closer look at what they're actually building.
I like that.
We'll be exploring some real-world applications that DevM contractors might actually be tasked with supporting.
This is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because we start to see, how those big decisions play out in practice. It's one thing to talk about frameworks and methodologies,
Right.
but it's another to see how it all comes together in the actual software
Absolutely.
that the military health system uses. So what's first on the list?
First up, we're going to dive into the world of MHS PHP registries.
Okay.
MHS PHP stands for the Military Health System Population Health Portal.
Okay.
It's a pretty critical system. It's used across the entire MHS Army, Navy, Air Force.
So MHS PHP, it's all about population health,
Yeah.
big data, analytics. What's the main purpose?
Imagine having a tool that can sift through mountains of data, pull out valuable insights about patient health.
Okay.
That's what MHS PHP does. It takes all those administrative records, from the Department of Defense, even purchased care,
Okay.
turns them into usable information, and then organizes them into these things called registries.
Registries.
Yeah.
So like a giant phone book of patient information.
Not exactly. These registries are more like carefully curated lists of patients who meet specific criteria. Think diabetes management, cardiovascular health,
Right.
or even things like opioid management, immunization tracking. The portal currently has 78 of these registries.
Wow, 78.
Oh.
That's a lot of data to manage. What makes this system so crucial for the military health system?
Here's where it gets really interesting. MHS PHP doesn't just collect data, it helps transform that data into actionable insights.
Yeah.
Healthcare teams can use those insights to proactively manage patient health.
Gotcha.
For example, if a registry flags a patient at high risk, let's say, for developing a certain condition, their doctor can intervene early, potentially preventing a more serious health issue down the road.
I'm starting to see the big picture here.
Mhm.
So how does all of this relate to DevMac? What kind of work might contractors be doing on a system like this?
Well, you can imagine with 78 registries,
Yeah.
the sheer amount of data flowing through MHS PHP.
Right.
A big part of a DevMac contractor's job, well, it would be ensuring that data is accurate, it's secure, it's readily available to those who need it.
Okay, so we're talking data integrity,
Absolutely.
system monitoring, troubleshooting.
Yeah, and potentially even developing new features.
Oh, wow.
To improve data visualization and analysis.
It's like we were talking about earlier. It's not just building a website.
It's not just building a website, right?
It's this whole data ecosystem
It really is.
that has to be functioning.
Exactly. And think about the potential challenges.
Yeah.
You're dealing with sensitive patient information, different data sources, a system that needs to be accessible to healthcare providers across the entire MHS.
Wow.
Security, interoperability, absolutely critical.
So you've got coding skills, but you've also got to understand all the complexities,
Absolutely.
healthcare data in the military environment.
Exactly.
This is where those specialized labor categories that we talked about
Exactly.
in our last episode really come into play.
Exactly, yeah. The source material, it specifically mentions UI developer help desk, database admin, and developer as potential roles just for MHS PHP support.
Okay.
You need a team with diverse skill sets to handle all the different aspects of maintaining, evolving a system like this.
It sounds like working on MHS PHP through DevMac would be pretty intense,
Yeah.
but incredibly rewarding too.
Oh, absolutely.
To be able to keep this data hub running smoothly,
Right.
making sure that the MHS can provide the best possible care.
Absolutely. Now let's shift gears a bit. Let's move away from broad population health management, explore a couple of applications that are much more specialized in their focus.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's next?
Back again to our deep dive into potential DevMac applications. Just now, we were talking about the MHS PHP registries,
Right.
a massive data undertaking.
Right, we were saying how supporting a system like that would involve so much more than just coding. It's, understanding data security, interoperability,
Yeah.
and those unique challenges of healthcare IT
Absolutely.
in a military environment.
Absolutely. And those challenges, they're only amplified when you start thinking about, just how vast the military health system is. We're
Right.
not just talking about a single hospital or clinic. This is a global network.
It's a huge responsibility. You mentioned that we'd be exploring some more specialized
Yeah.
applications in this segment. What's up next?
Let's talk about the TBI portal. It's a system that's specifically designed to support the National Intrepid Center of Excellence, or NICOE.
Okay.
As the name suggests, NICOE, it focuses on the treatment of traumatic brain injury, TBI.
Right.
A critical issue, especially for service members who may have experienced TBI during their service.
TBI is such a complex condition. It can have long-lasting effects.
Absolutely.
What role does the TBI portal play in providing care for these individuals?
Think of the TBI portal as like the central hub for coordinating all aspects of TBI care within the MHS. It handles patient referrals from military treatment facilities all across the country.
Right.
It manages scheduling for providers, patients. It helps connect patients with the resources they need for their recovery.
Streamlines the entire process.
It does.
Initial diagnosis to referral, treatment, and follow-up care.
Yeah.
Sounds like a really invaluable tool for patients and providers.
It is. And here's something that really stood out to me in the source material. The TBI portal isn't just a static platform. It's built on something called the TBI Portal Shared Framework, or TPSF,
Okay.
which allows for continuous development and improvement.
So TPSF provides the foundation, but there's room to grow within that framework.
Exactly.
What kind of development tasks might DevMac contractors be involved in when it comes to the TBI portal?
There's kind of a dual focus there. Maintaining existing features, but then also developing new ones within that TPSF.
Okay.
That could mean anything from, improving the user interface to make it easier to navigate,
Right.
to integrating new data sources that provide a more holistic view of a patient's condition.
So you could have people, contractors working on, let's say, making the system more user-friendly
Right.
for the clinicians, the patients.
Yeah.
But others are focused on expanding the capabilities, integrating it with other MHS systems.
Exactly. And remember, this is all happening within the context of, a highly secure environment. Protecting that sensitive patient information, it's paramount. Any development work, it would need to adhere to strict security protocols.
It's a great example of how DevMac projects, they're not just about the technical skills.
Mm-hmm.
You have to understand the broader context of military healthcare and the unique challenges involved.
Absolutely. Now, let's move on to another application that caught my eye.
Okay.
It's called CAMP, which stands for the Clinical Assessments Management Portal. This one's got a really interesting backstory.
Okay, I'm all ears. What's so special about CAMP?
It actually started out as something called the Enterprise Survey Portal,
Okay.
but it's been totally reimagined. It's now all about empowering patients to play a more active role in their healthcare.
Empowering patients.
Yeah.
I like the sound of that. How does CAMP achieve that?
Through targeted self-service surveys.
Okay.
CAMP, it allows developers to create surveys that gather critical patient-reported data on specific health concerns. Currently, it's focusing on pain management and musculoskeletal health, supporting communities called Pastor in Motion.
So instead of relying just on what a doctor observes,
Right.
during a visit, CAMP gathers information directly from the patient about their pain levels, their functionalities,
Exactly.
other key metrics.
This patient-reported data can be so valuable in, developing personalized treatment plans, tracking progress over time.
It gives clinicians that comprehensive understanding
Exactly.
of the patient's experience.
Yeah, and it ties back into what we were just talking about with MHS PHP and data-driven healthcare.
Right.
It's all about gathering the right information and then using it to improve those patient outcomes.
Absolutely. What kind of tasks might DevMac contractors be involved in when it comes to CAMP?
Well, first and foremost, there's the ongoing development and maintenance of the platform itself.
Sure.
But here's where it gets interesting. DevMac contractors, they could be tasked with developing new surveys for other health concerns, essentially expanding CAMP's reach.
So beyond pain management and musculoskeletal health.
Yeah, you could have surveys tailored to specific military populations like pilots, special forces, addressing their unique health
It
challenges.
sounds like a dynamic area.
It is.
Lots of room for creative
Yeah.
problem solving
Absolutely.
and impactful contributions.
It highlights the diversity of DevMac projects.
Right. We've gone from managing vast data sets in MHS PHP to specialized care for TBI, and now empowering patients through these self-service surveys with CAMP. It's a pretty incredible range.
It really is. It speaks to the breadth of expertise that will be needed within this DevMac ecosystem.
Now, we've covered MHS PHP, TBI Portal, and CAMP. Do we have time for one more application before we wrap up this segment?
We do, and this one kind of takes us back to the world of data management, but with a really specific focus on patient outcomes. We're going to dive into PROCR, which stands for Patient-Reported Outcomes Clinical Record.
PROCR.
Okay.
That name is pretty self-explanatory.
And it is.
It's all about what the patient is experiencing, right?
Right. PROCR is designed to help military service members return to duty and, more broadly, all patients, military or civilian, return to, active, fulfilling lives.
Okay.
It does this by taking a holistic approach, especially when it comes to pain management.
You said holistic.
Yeah.
So it goes beyond just treating the immediate symptoms. What else does PROCR take into account?
It looks at the whole picture. The pain itself, any related psychosocial factors that might be contributing to it,
Okay.
the patient's treatment history, and even their overall musculoskeletal health. It's about understanding the context around the pain and then developing that personalized treatment plan that really addresses the root causes.
So it's not about just masking the pain.
No.
It's figuring out why it's happening.
Exactly. And it uses data in really innovative ways to achieve this. For example, there's something called the outcomes report.
Okay.
That allows clinicians to track a patient's progress over time, even compare it to MHS averages.
They can see if a treatment approach is working or if there are trends within a certain patient population.
Exactly. And it doesn't stop there. PROCR, it also generates provider summaries that display that patient-reported data, really concise, easy-to-understand format, and it even creates template notes that can be integrated directly into the electronic health record,
Wow.
saving those clinicians valuable time.
It sounds like a very comprehensive system.
It is.
Where does DevMac come into play with all of this? What kind of tasks might contractors be involved in with PROCR?
Well, supporting PROCR is going to require a range of expertise. First and foremost, there's the need for continuing development support.
Okay.
DevMac contractors will be tasked with keeping that application running smoothly, ensuring its security, and implementing new features as needed.
So back to that blend of maintenance and innovation we see with other applications.
Exactly. But there's also a strong need for business intelligence or BI support. PROCR is collecting a lot of valuable data, and DevMac contractors, they could be involved in, developing and presenting meaningful insights from that data.
Helping clinicians and researchers identify those trends.
Yeah.
Evaluate treatment effectiveness, improve patient care.
Right. And there's another big piece of the puzzle, data integration. The source material, it mentions there's a push to bring data from MHS Genesis, that's the military's main electronic health record system,
Right.
into PROCR.
That sounds like a massive undertaking. Integrating two complex systems like that, that's no small feat.
It's not, and it's going to require a very specialized skill set. DevMac contractors working on that integration, they would need expertise in data mapping, data security, ensuring the two systems can seamlessly communicate.
It's another example of how DevMac projects require more than just those coding skills. You need a really deep understanding of data management, healthcare systems, and those unique requirements of that military environment.
Absolutely. A great place to wrap up this segment on specialized DevMac applications. We've seen how these applications, they range from supporting specific health concerns like TBI to empowering patients through self-service surveys and leveraging data to improve those patient outcomes.
It's been a fascinating look at the potential impact that DevMac could have on the military health system. Before we move on, what's the key takeaway you want our listeners to remember about these specialized applications?
I think the biggest takeaway is that DevMac is not a one-size-fits-all contract.
Okay.
These projects, they're diverse, they're complex, and they require a really broad range of expertise.
Yeah.
If you're even considering pursuing DevMac work, it's crucial to really think about your team's strengths, your experience with different technologies, and the areas of healthcare IT that you're most passionate about.
Finding the right fit.
Exactly.
Making sure that your organization has the resources and expertise to deliver on these complex requirements.
Now, with all these specific applications in mind, let's zoom back out to the bigger picture. In our next segment, we'll revisit that key question from our last deep dive. How's all of this going to be structured? How will the government organize all these different projects, methodologies, and talents under that DevMac umbrella?
Okay, I'm ready to revisit the blueprint.
Yeah.
See how those initial decisions about DevMac's structure could impact the work being done on these applications.
Absolutely. Let's dive back into that in our final segment.
Welcome back. We've spent the last 2 segments exploring those potential DevMac 8 applications, everything from managing vast data sets in MHS PHP to empowering patients with CanAP's self-service surveys.
It's been quite a tour
It has.
of the military health systems IT landscape.
And it's important to remind our listener that, we're not just making this stuff up.
Right.
We're going off of real source material.
Exactly. That RFI.
The RFI, yeah.
The government released.
Yeah.
To get that input from industry experts.
Yeah.
How to structure this massive
development contract.
Absolutely. Now, with all these specific applications fresh in our minds, let's shift focus back to those big picture questions about DevMac's structure.
Right. Back to the blueprint.
Yeah, because ultimately, the way this contract is organized, it's going to have a huge impact on how these applications are developed, maintained, and integrated.
Okay, so let's revisit that blueprint.
Right.
In our last deep dive on DevMac, we talked about how the RFI raise those key questions, about grouping different types of work, how you organize talent, and even figuring out how pricing might work. How do those structural decisions connect to these applications we've been talking about?
Well, let's take the question of talent organization, for example.
Okay.
One of the things the RFI asked about was how to group talent.
Yeah.
To support different levels of DevSecOps or DevOps task orders.
Right. DevSecOps and DevOps, everyone's throwing those buzzwords around.
But how would those concepts actually play out in a real-world DevMac project? Think about the TBI portal. Its focus on continuous development within that TPSF framework.
Yeah.
You could have a dedicated DevSecOps team responsible for the entire life cycle of a new feature, from the design, the coding, the testing, the deployment, the ongoing monitoring.
Wow.
This team would work closely with clinicians, other stakeholders, to ensure that the new feature, it meets their needs and it integrates seamlessly.
So you're saying that the structure of DevAmp could determine whether you have these integrated multidisciplinary teams or more siloed groups.
Exactly.
Working on different parts.
And the same goes for an application like CAMP.
Okay.
You might have a DevOps team focused on building and deploying new self-service surveys, working closely with subject matter experts.
Okay, so the way that talent is organized under DevAmp could have this ripple effect.
Absolutely.
Impacting how efficiently projects are completed, the quality of the final product.
Right. What about pricing? We talked about that being a complex issue.
Yeah, a huge one.
In our last deep dive, how does that play into supporting all these applications?
It's a big consideration. The RFI specifically asked about how to price talent at the MSc level when you have such a diverse range of skills needed across these applications.
It's true. Think about all the different roles we've discussed, developers, testers, project managers, business analysts, data scientists, security specialists.
It's like assembling a team of superheroes.
It is.
Each with their own unique powers.
But you can't pay Iron Man the same as Hawkeye.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how do you create a pricing structure that's fair?
That's right.
Fair to the government, fair to the contractors bidding on these projects. That's a tough one.
It's a big question that the folks designing DevMac are going to have to wrestle with.
They are, for sure. Yeah. What about those enabling capabilities we were discussing last time?
Yeah.
Providing those developers with the tools and resources to do their best work. How does that fit into all of this?
That's where DevX comes in.
Okay.
It's being proposed as a potential solution for providing those enabling capabilities. Think of it as a platform that gives those developers access to everything from cloud computing resources and development tools to pre-built software components and libraries.
So instead of each contractor having to reinvent the wheel, they can leverage DevX to streamline their development process, focus on those unique aspects of their specific project.
Yeah.
But there's some big questions about how DevX would be integrated within DevMax.
There are,
would it be mandatory? Would there be different levels of access?
Yeah.
Who's responsible for managing it, maintaining it? The government, a third party.
Big questions. The RFI specifically asks industry experts for their input on, is that mix of capabilities within DevX appropriate, or should some of those capabilities remain under the direct control of DevMac? It's almost like deciding who owns the toolbox.
It is. And it comes down to finding that right balance between standardization and flexibility.
For sure. On one hand, having a standardized set of tools and resources can make things more efficient, ensure a certain level of quality across all the projects. But on the other hand, you don't want to stifle innovation.
Right. You don't want to force everyone to use the same cookie-cutter approach.
So, how do you create an environment that supports both efficiency and creativity?
That's the million-dollar question.
It is, and I think it speaks to a larger shift we're seeing in government contracting.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just about awarding contracts to the lowest bidder anymore. It's about creating these partnerships with industry experts who can bring those innovative solutions to the table.
It's about leveraging those best minds
Absolutely.
in the private sector to help solve some of the government's biggest challenges.
Yeah.
And DevMac seems like a prime example of that.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up this 3-part deep dive, I think it's worth reflecting on what we've learned.
What have we learned?
We started by exploring the high-level structure of this massive contract.
Right. Those key questions about how do you group work, how do you organize the talent,
Right.
how do you even price it?
Then we took a look at some specific applications, right?
Yeah, those applications that DevMac contractors could be supporting.
Yeah.
We highlighted the diversity of skills and expertise needed.
For sure. And finally, we kind of circled back to those big picture questions about DevX, that role of enabling capabilities.
It's been a fascinating journey.
It has.
To say the least. So what's the one key message you want to leave our listeners with?
If you're even thinking about pursuing DevMac contracts, do your research.
Yeah.
Understand those complexities of the military health system. Think about your team's strengths and be prepared to adapt.
Adapt. Yeah.
DevMac is about more than just coding.
It is.
It's about having that passion for using technology to improve patient outcomes.
It is.
Making a real difference in the lives of those who serve our country.
Well said. Thanks for guiding us through this intricate world.
Of course.
And thanks to our listeners for joining us on this deep dive into the DevMac Reboot. Until next time.